recording tonight so that for anyone that wants to see the presentation, I'll eventually post it. It will be an online link. It's not going to be a clean and tidy presentation. You'll get all of these, extra chat and the ums in there. So I hope you don't mind. But if you wanted to see the information again in the future, it will be available. All right, so I'm seeing the chat box, Judith, you don't have any sound. I experienced this on one of the webinars I recently attended, and I had to check settings. So I'm not sure, what you're on, a Mac or a desktop or, whatever. But if you check your settings, it's probably in the, where it says WebEx meetings, somewhere in there, there's preferences.
I don't find it at all.
I'm not going to be able to kind of walk you through it, but you'll just have to kind of look around on all those menus. If that doesn't work, you may need to reboot. Let me just, since you can't have.
In every other Zoom I've been in, it's just to click on, but there's nothing here that will click on.
I'm just typing a comment for you. All right. Hopefully Judith will be able to hear.
We keep your camera off. This is if you want to speak. This is one of them. This is if you want them to see it. So.
Okay, and Deborah, you posted that when you started, did it ask you? Okay, join by computer. So thank you for, if anyone else wants to try to help Judith figure out how to do the sound, maybe post what your ideas are in the chat box. But I'm going to get started right now. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on the second round, the second meeting of the Plant-Based Cooking for Optimal Health and Nutrition webinar. My name is Mary Lawrence, and I run a business called Well on Wheels. It's a vegan chef service and wellness coaching service. I've been doing more of the coaching and online work right now as a result of the coronavirus shutdown. So that's where my focus is. And I'll tell you a little bit more about me in the presentation. So right now I am just shifting over, and I will say technology-wise, you may be familiar with the Zoom app. So this is WebEx. It's similar, but there are some differences. So that's one of the things where it might cause some people trouble with hearing, with connecting, things like that. But there are the little buttons at the bottom. So you want to make sure that your mic is muted. That's one thing. If you want to have video on or off, so if you want to show yourself, you can click it on. If not, you don't have to, and I'll just see your initials. And then you have the participant list. So if you click on that, you can see who's participating on this WebEx. And then the next button is the chat button. It looks like a little dialogue circle. So if you click on that, that's when you can go and see what's happening in the chat box and post any comments or questions. And I'll have that open through the presentation so you can ask questions as needed, or make comments, and then if it's a long question, I'll wait till the end to address that. All right, so let me see. All right, other than the technology questions, I am going to assume that we're, for the most part, I'll focus on the basics of plant-based nutrition, and I have a PowerPoint presentation, so let me just get that up on the screen. We'll go through. And as I said, I will have the chat box open on the side if anyone wants to post their comments. All right. So welcome again. This is my contact information if you need to reach me or if you want to follow me on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I also have a YouTube channel with a bunch of videos, and you can reach me by email. That's the best way to reach me. There's my contact information. wellonwheels.com is my website. And just a little bit about me. As I mentioned, I'm a vegan chef and wellness educator. I've been running my business since 2003, so 17 years in business. And in addition to running my business, I also teach English part-time at, hold on a second, at Gateway Community College. I'm just going to had a request to annotate. I need to just decline that for now because then it will change the screen. So that's why I had to kind of get out of this for the moment. So please don't click on annotate if you don't mind. All right, let me just get back to sharing. Okay, so I teach English at Gateway Community College in New Haven. I have a certificate in plant-based nutrition from the T. Colin Campbell Center for Nutrition Studies through Cornell. And 2 years ago, I became certified as a master gardener. So I'll talk a little bit about growing your own food, which I absolutely love to do. And this is, you know, we've had some beautiful weather for that lately. I coordinate a community garden called the Peas and Love Community Garden. It's all organic, all vegan. And I'm also a board member of the American Vegan Society, which is celebrating its 60th anniversary this year. And I have a little promo that I'm doing. This is a free webinar, but if you would like to donate $5, $10, whatever, to this program, to me, I will, the proceeds will also go to the American Vegan Society as a donation in honor of their 60th anniversary. So I'll have information about that later, Venmo, PayPal, whichever you'd like. Okay, and then just to kind of give some disclaimer. All right, so please mute your mics. Yeah, whenever we have, just going to try and mute everybody. All right, so whenever somebody joins, if you're not using headphones, earbuds, you get the feedback. Okay, so a disclaimer. So this presentation is based on 20 years of, at least 20 years of the research that I've done, current evidence-based research on health and wellness, on plant-based nutrition. So it's a synthesis of all of that, but it's not meant to be medical advice. So anything that I share with you, it's not prescriptive. This is informative. So you need to consider your own individual energy and nutrient needs, and also consult a healthcare professional whenever you're considering making any dietary changes. And I do want to add these three little caveats to that a whole food plant-based diet, although it's very healthy, I'm not making the claim that it's a cure for disease, because that would be malpractice. So when you eat these foods, I'll talk about the health benefits. I'll talk about how they have effects in your body. But again, it's not a cure. And I've seen many people on social media saying that if you're vegan, you can't get the COVID-19 virus. And I just also want to say that that's not true. Being vegan does not make you immune to COVID-19 or to any other virus. And it's also not a prescription or a diet plan. So like I said, I'll be talking about foods that are healthy, the health benefits of a plant-based diet, but it's not a prescription. And I'll just have to remind everyone to please mute your microphones, because I'm getting some feedback. Thank you. All right. All right, so I see, okay. I'm Sorry, that's really distracting. I'm going to have to go back and stop sharing the screen and just mute everybody's mics. All right, there we go. Please remember to do that. I'm going to go back to sharing the screen. All right. Now that we're got a little bit of a foundation, knowing that this is not a cure, but WFPB, you might wonder if you've seen that acronym, what that is. So it's whole food, plant-based, and it refers to the type of diet, way of eating that is essentially focusing on the whole plants. And I'll talk about what those are in detail through this presentation. So this was a diet, I shouldn't say diet, but a way of eating that had been emphasized. It seems recently, the vegan diet seems to be a fad, seems to have only just happened within the last few years, but people have been focusing on plant-based nutrition for many decades. Dr. John McDougall was one of the earliest pioneers. He and Dr. Ornish also had medical practices where they essentially found that switching to plant-based whole foods, minimal oil, minimal sugar, minimal salt would dramatically improve their patients' health. So they were some of the earlier pioneers. After them, T. Colin Campbell wrote the book, The China Study, and this was one of the longest epidemiological studies that essentially showed the connection between animal protein and cancer, that the more animal protein people consumed, the higher the likelihood and the higher percentage of cancer rates. And there are other effects that he showed and again studied extensively over decades. So this was a groundbreaking book that came out and that essentially started this plant-based trend. And then another book that came out shortly after that was Caldwell Esselstyn, who wrote the book Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. And let me remind you again, please mute your microphones. And said no staff member was fired. I'm going to have to please mute your microphone. There, I just had to go in and mute everybody. Let me come back to my presentation. All right, so Caldwell Esselstyn wrote the book Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease, which also focused on a plant-based diet. And his area of focus, he's a cardiologist at the Cleveland Clinic, and he wanted to see if switching to a plant-based diet could reverse cardiovascular disease. And in many cases it did, and many of his patients no longer needed to be on medication as a result. And one of his most famous clients was Bill Clinton, who had several bypass surgeries and had reached a point where his health had been compromised, and finally somebody got the attention of Caldwell Esselstyn, who approached him about switching his diet. So he went vegan and lost significant weight and essentially did not have to have another bypass surgery. So that's, you know, one well-known example of the plant-based diet. And he, as well as T. Colin Campbell, are featured in the documentary Forks Over Knives, which is available on Netflix. So if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's really a good resource for understanding how a plant-based diet works and some of the positive benefits. So let me move on. So all of those doctors, medical professionals have focused on a plant-based diet in their practices, and the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization also points to the benefits of a plant-based diet. They say that there's evidence that such diets will prevent or delay a significant proportion of non-communicable chronic disease. So that would be things like type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease. Many of those are the chronic conditions that are affected by diet. So they recommend plant-based foods, so pulses, legumes, vegetables, foods like that. And there are several of the medical journals as well. The Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics says appropriate planned vegetarian diets, including vegan diets, are healthful, nutritionally adequate, and provide health benefits in the prevention and treatment of certain diseases. And then the Permanente Journal, which is a professional journal of the National Institute for Health, says that healthy eating may be best achieved with a plant-based diet. And then you also have the American Heart Association, the professional journal that says eating a mostly plant-based diet, provided the foods you choose are rich in nutrition and low in added sugars, sodium, cholesterol, and artery clogging, saturated and trans fats, they recommend the plant-based diet. And I should also point out that cholesterol, there's no cholesterol in plant-based foods. That's only found in animal products. So many of you may have grown up with the USDA food pyramid. That's what I remember as a kid. And then they later made some changes to that, and they came out with the myplate.gov. So that's what you see here. This is essentially the USDA's recommendation. So you can see, 4 of those foods: fruits, vegetables, grains, and protein. Protein, of course, could be beans, are pretty much plant-based. And then they have dairy. But as I'll talk about in this presentation, there are ways to get calcium, iron, and protein without eating meat or dairy. And that's why the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine came out with their version, which is called the Power Plate. And essentially it's those 4 things: fruits, vegetables, legumes, and grains without the milk, and no need for meat. So the plant-based whole foods are really good for you, and here's some of the reasons why. They're recommended because the fiber content is really important for many benefits to your body. So fiber can clean toxins from the digestive tract. So that is often a reason why people have poor immune systems. Their toxins are just collecting there and they're unable to digest the food effectively. The fiber will clean that out. It will also feed the good bacteria. And when the good bacteria is in higher quantities than bad bacteria, that's when you can fight off infections. That's when you can fight off these viruses and bacteria. So you want to feed the good, it's also called flora, in your gut. And that also boosts the immune system, and it even boosts your energy level because you're able to digest the food better. And often as well, this improves mood because digestion, the immune system, and mood are very connected. So phytonutrients, those are the plant nutrients. Phyto essentially just means plant. They work together, so synergistically. So you don't want to just take, it's again, as prescription, you don't want to just take a pill. You want to take the whole food, consume the whole food so you can get all of the benefits. And all of those nutrients work together to reduce inflammation in the body. And inflammation is the big cause of disease and health problems. So it can be anything from arthritis to migraine headaches to soreness and stiffness in the morning. It could be inflammation in your gut, so you might have digestive problems, all of those things. And of course, just overall inflammation and excess weight can cause health problems. So the phytonutrients act as antioxidants. Essentially, they repair cell damage and they help grow new cells in the body, and they clean out the toxins from your body. And the third bullet point here is starting with eliminating the most common inflammatory foods often can have a healing effect. So the most common inflammatory foods are meat, dairy, eggs, so all animal products are inflammatory, plus refined sugar, fried foods, artificial chemical additives, anything artificial, the body doesn't know how to, what to do with it. So that kind of is like a toxin in the body. And trans fats. So trans fats from fried foods as well as hydrogenated oils, often found in junk food. So if you eliminate those, you can dramatically improve your overall health. And it may take time. So in my experience, I'll tell you a little bit more as we go through this presentation. When I changed my diet 23 years ago, so in June I will celebrate my veganiversary, my 23-year veganiversary. And I initially changed my diet because I had severe allergies, fatigue, rashes, digestive problems. I was tired all the time, all sorts of things like that. And when I eliminated these foods, it took a while for my body to essentially clean itself out. So probably about a month or two of not feeling well, constantly blowing my nose. But after that sinus congestion was eliminated, eventually I felt so much better. And it was amazing, the dramatic improvement. So these are some of the reasons that people often cite a plant-based diet as being healthy, or some of the conditions that can potentially be prevented or even reversed. And as I said, I'm not going to say they'll be cured, but a plant-based diet can help with all of these conditions that I mentioned: migraines, headaches, skin issues, digestive problems, food allergies, even asthma, autoimmune disease. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later because I do have an autoimmune disease. So they help with controlling it, but again, they're not going to cure something like that. And then others, heart disease, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, etc. So I want to get into a little bit about the plant-based fuel. So you might wonder, well, what do I need to eat to improve all those health conditions or to just overall feel healthier? So these are the foods that you want to focus on when you're making a shift to a plant-based diet. The categories are complete proteins, calcium, iron, omega-3 fat, vitamin B12, and the antioxidants, so vitamins A, C, and E. And sometimes there's a concern about, well, what if you're an athlete, or what if you're pregnant, or what if you're elderly? Anyone at any stage in their life, young, old, wherever you may be, can switch to a whole foods plant-based diet. Again, everybody has different needs, so you may have to consult some other resources for additional guidance, but I do want to say that anyone can do it, even these vegan bodybuilders. There are such people as bodybuilders who eat just plant-based foods and are perfectly healthy and physically fit. So I'll start with proteins because that's often the big concern in our society. Americans seem to be so focused on protein, and there's a myth that you need to eat meat in order to get enough protein. And I know that's what my concern was when I first went vegan 23 years ago, because I thought, well, everybody eats meat. What am I supposed to do? And then the more I read, the more I researched, I realized there were so many other sources of protein, and that meat really is not healthy for the body for so many reasons. A complete protein essentially is a food that contains all 9 essential amino acids that the body can't make. All the rest of them the body can synthesize, but these 9 essential amino acids you need to get from food. They may be in one source, so these plant-based sources have all 9 essential amino acids, or if you combine foods or just have a wide variety of foods throughout the day, you don't need to worry about getting enough of the essential amino acids. But if you are concerned, you just want to make sure that you do get them, this list includes the plant-based sources. So hemp seed, chia seed, soy, quinoa, spirulina, amaranth, buckwheat, and nutritional yeast. And but I will have to say that there are, again, the concerns about complete proteins and plant-based foods. And sometimes I share stories. So here's a story of somebody who contacted me who wanted to go vegan. And she was concerned because she said she tried, but she felt tired all the time. So I asked her first, well, what is she eating? Because sometimes the food you're eating may not be enough food or enough of the right foods to give you the energy that you need. So she said she was eating quinoa. So I said, okay, well, that's really good. What else are you eating? And she said, just quinoa. And I asked her why she was eating just quinoa. And she said, well, it's a complete protein. And I said, well, yes, it is a complete protein. That just means it has 9 essential amino acids. But she was under the assumption that since it was called a complete protein, that it included everything, every nutrient that your body needs. And that's all she thought she needed to eat. So this is a word of caution, is just to make sure that you eat a wide variety of whole foods, that you don't want to just eat tofu, you don't want to just eat kale. Even though those foods can be healthy for you, again, a wide variety of foods is beneficial. And here's why. I'll continue with the next slide. So calcium, another myth is that you need to drink cow's milk in order to get enough calcium, that you need to drink 3 glasses of milk a day, especially if you're older, or if you're trying to prevent osteoporosis. There's the medical directive of drinking cow's milk. But there are actually problems with that. The calcium in cow's milk may not be absorbed, and it can also cause problems with too much protein in your body can actually make you lose calcium. But calcium through plant-based foods can be absorbed as long as you have these variety of foods. And some of the really good sources of calcium are cruciferous vegetables. So those are plants in the family, cruciferous family, like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, kohlrabi. And those are really great high sources of calcium. Others are dark leafy greens like collard greens, mustard, kale, arugula, and even our wild greens like dandelion. If you have dandelion growing in your yard, don't spray them with herbicide, don't pull them out. You can actually eat those dandelion greens. They're really high in calcium. They're also high in iron as well. So you can saute them with olive oil and garlic. You can add them to a salad. You can have them pureed, make them into a tea, and you'll be able to get the calcium that way. And other sources of calcium: tofu, almond, sesame seeds, including tahini, which is pureed sesame seeds, dried figs, blackstrap molasses are really high in calcium. And then chia seeds, those little tiny black seeds that maybe 5 years ago not many people knew about. We just thought about them as chia pets. But of course, you can make pudding with chia seeds. You can add it to your smoothie. You can sprinkle it on your cereal. 2 tablespoons contain 179 milligrams of calcium. And then another great wild food source of calcium is stinging nettles, which are, it's a wild plant, but you can cultivate them. If you make a tea out of the dried leaves, you can, 1 cup of tea, which has, let's say, 2 tablespoons of dried nettles, will be 30 to 40% of the RDA for calcium. So I drink nettles every day, and I'll talk to you about a tea that I make as well. So iron is another myth, that you need to eat meat in order to get enough iron. And you do need iron in your body, but you don't need to get it from meat. Popeye, if you remember him, he always popped open that can of spinach to get strong and build those muscles. Iron is important for carrying oxygen in our blood, and it also helps to eat food that contains vitamin C in order to increase the iron absorption. So sometimes people are worried that if they're plant-based that they might get iron deficient. So you just want to make sure that you're eating enough foods that contain vitamin C, and that will help you absorb the iron. So some examples of plant-based sources are dried fruits, beans, lentils, legumes, whole grains, and then you have your dark leafy greens again, which are great for so many benefits, and tofu and tempeh. And then omega-3 fat. So there's a myth that you can only get that from eating fish or from cod liver oil. That used to be the theory. But omega-3 oil is found in plant-based foods. Some sources are flaxseed, hemp seed, chia seed, walnuts, and soybeans. If you're having the flax seeds, you do want to make sure that they're ground, or you can have the flax oil. And omega-3 oil is really important because it helps reduce inflammation in your body. So as I mentioned before, inflammation is a cause of many of these degenerative diseases. So if you have more of a ratio, higher ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 and 9, so animal foods are usually high in omega-6 and 9. If you eliminate those, then you're going to have more omega-3 oil in your body. And those are really helpful for, as I said, reducing inflammation. And vitamin B12, it's one of those vitamins that you do need to get as a supplement, I recommend. But the myth is that vegans are always low in B12. But the reality is that it's about 40% of the population that is low in vitamin B12. And since there's nowhere near 40% of the population that's vegan, it means that even if you eat animal products, your levels of vitamin B12 can be low. So that's why I mentioned taking a supplement, and I'll show you what I do. It's a spray that I just take every morning. And that's the supplement. 250 micrograms a day is all you need. And whenever I've had it tested, I've never been low while I've been vegan. All right. And then vitamins A, C, and E. So these are the vitamins that are found in all of the colorful fruits and vegetables. So this is a short list. Really, anything colorful is going to have those high vitamins A, C, and E. These are the antioxidants that help boost the immune system, and they prevent the free radical damage, and they help your body repair the free radical damage. And they also, as I mentioned, increase the absorption of iron. So some common plant-based sources that you might think about is your tropical fruits, your citrus fruits, and your berries. And really fresh, dried, whatever you can get frozen, those are all going to be great sources. So I don't know if you've been doing the same thing as I have, but I try to get fresh fruits and vegetables every week, but I also have my frozen fruits and vegetables as a backup because I'm not shopping frequently. I'm trying to once a week go shopping or even less. So I have plenty of fruits and vegetables in my freezer just to make sure I'm getting those antioxidants. And then you have the dark leafy greens, which are popping up in gardens right now, even the wild greens, as I mentioned, dandelion and nettles, and cruciferous vegetables. So you want to think about the colorful fruits and vegetables as the rainbow on your plate. So Eat the Rainbow is what the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine says, and that's a group of doctors and health-oriented practitioners who recommend a plant-based diet for basic wellness. They have this really handy chart called the Nutrition Rainbow that goes through, I won't explain what each of these are for, but it goes through all the different colors of the rainbow and the foods that are in those color categories, and the protective substances and possible actions, so the health benefits from some of those. So for example, red is the color, and so tomatoes are red, watermelon, And that means they're high in lycopene, which is an antioxidant that cuts prostate cancer risk. And then you have orange, which you think of as carrots and yams and sweet potatoes, and that's the nutrient is beta carotene. So you're probably familiar with that, with carrots and helping eye health, but they also support your immune system. They're a powerful antioxidant. So you can look through this list and just get a feel for what all of those colorful foods are doing in your body. And this is just a short list again. So some of the antioxidants. So as I mentioned, beta carotene found in carrots. And then you have allicin in garlic, and that helps with your fighting bacteria. And then the lycopene in tomatoes, which helps with preventing cancer. And so many other ones. Resveratrol, which is in black grapes. People will say, oh, it's in wine. So they drink their glass of red wine, but it's in the dark grapes, and that will help with heart disease. And curcumin, found in turmeric, will help with reducing inflammation in the body. So many benefits. But as I said, you don't want to just say, oh, I'm going to take my turmeric capsules and then continue to eat my Whoppers every day and my potato chips and ice cream, because it may help you a little bit, but overall you need to think about holistically the other foods that you're eating. And this is just another list. So some of those things that these antioxidants do: cherries help calm your nervous system. Watermelon helps with controlling your heart rate. Blueberries protect your heart. Mangoes protect against several kinds of cancer. So have a wide variety of these fruits and vegetables in order to help with all of those conditions. So here's the list that, if any of you have heard of Dr. Joel Fuhrman, his book, Eat to Live, has this handy acronym. He refers to it as GBOMBS. It's GBOMBS, and I add a second S there. And that essentially stands for greens, which are at the top of his list. So greens like kale, collard, arugula, dandelion, any of those kind of bitter greens too are really helpful. He calls these the superfoods. Essentially, if you make your basic diet around these foods, you can prevent most of those degenerative diseases. Again, it's not a guarantee, it's not a prescription, even if you eat healthfully. So this is my caveat. When I changed my diet 23 years ago, essentially went from feeling all those conditions that I described really unhealthy, and after I changed my diet, my health dramatically improved, and all those illnesses that I had essentially went away. And I felt like I had cured myself. But the reality is, we still live in a polluted environment. We can't control the air we breathe. We can't control, at least to some extent, we can, but not entirely. We can't control what goes into the food or the water we drink. So, I found myself last year just still, even though I was eating well, just not feeling good. All of those things were coming back. A lot of inflammation in my body. I was feeling achiness, soreness, tired, just not right. And eventually, so this is why it's really important to still go to the doctor, to not think that you're going to cure these conditions all the time. Went to the doctor, got tested, finally found out that my thyroid, the antibodies were attacking my thyroid, and my immune system was attacking my thyroid. So that is a condition known as Hashimoto's, which needs to be controlled with medication. So I did need to last year go on medication for my thyroid. And I also learned that raw cruciferous vegetables can have a negative impact on your thyroid ability. So if you're hypothyroid, meaning that your thyroid is not working, functioning properly, you do have to kind of be careful about how much of those cruciferous vegetables you eat. And that to me was devastating, as I pretty much eat like a head of broccoli almost every day, and I had to cut back on that. So that was almost, one of those shocking things, counterintuitive. A food that is traditionally, typically thought of as healthy was actually having a negative impact on me. So, so that's just something to be aware of. But back to our superfood list, beans and legumes, those are really good for protein, really good for fiber. And then onion and garlic, they help with, as I mentioned, they're natural antibiotics. So they help clean out any of those toxins in your body. Mushrooms have a lot of anti-cancer properties and also high in protein. Berries have so many great things for them. So anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory, they taste really good. So it's a really nice treat to be able to have fresh berries. And then the seeds, the really good ones, as I mentioned from the other list, the chia, flax, and hemp, because of their omega-3 content, and also because of their protein content and the calcium. And then I added this additional S and H, so spices and herbs, because there's so many benefits, not just culinary, because of the flavors that you can add from spices and herbs, but they also have medicinal properties. So ginger and turmeric in particular are really good anti-cancer, antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, so many great things. So eat a lot of curries, Thai curry, Jamaican curry, Indian curry, and you'll get a lot of ginger and turmeric. And just to give you an example of what that might look like. So this is my G-bomb for the day, essentially my lunch, which I just took a picture of it because I thought, oh, this kind of applies to everything that I'm talking about in tonight's presentation. So I made a pasta primavera, and I used brown rice pasta because I eat gluten-free. And I tossed that with sauteed radish, carrot, and kale, all of them from my garden. And yes, you can saute radish. I actually prefer it sauteed rather than raw. And you can see that top right picture is what I harvested from my garden today. So radish, carrot, and kale I sauteed, and then I chopped fresh chives, oregano, and sorrel. Sorrel has a nice lemony, slightly sour green that has a nice contrast. It's very refreshing with the sauteed foods. And I tossed that on top, and I tossed everything in an almond cream sauce, just very light almond cream sauce. And I garnished it with chive blossoms. And again, the chives are from my garden. They're blooming right now. Bees and butterflies love them, and you can eat them. So it's one of the edible flowers. And really, that was my satisfying lunch today. It was very quick and easy to make. So you might wonder, well, where do you get fresh produce now? And stores are beginning to open up more, and some of the restaurants are beginning to open up, but you may still not want to go out and about, and I recommend staying inside as well unless you have to go out. So delivery service, you can get fresh produce from some of these online businesses, Imperfect Foods, Misfit Market, Farm Fresh to You, and Fresh Direct. And of course, farmers markets, some of them are starting to open up. Again, we'll see how things go with the social distancing, but hopefully the farmers will be able to share their produce with the public soon. And many of those farmers markets take SNAP, the food assistance, and some of them do double dollars, so you get twice as much of your benefit when you shop at farmers markets. And then community supported agriculture. I think there's some that might be struggling, and some might be getting more demand as a result of the coronavirus shutdown. So look into those where you buy a share at the beginning of the season, and then you get fresh boxes of produce each week, and you don't have to worry about picking it or shopping for it. It's all right there for you. And then normally if I give a presentation, I would ask how many of you have gardens, and I'd look to see who raises their hands. But if you have a garden, of course, that's the best way to get fresh produce. If not, sometimes towns and cities, you can find community gardens. And I used to live in New Haven for 8 years, and I was involved in a community garden there. And I learned so much from my community members and from trial and error that I ended up starting a community garden myself 3 years ago. So in Manchester, if anyone's interested in learning more about community gardens or veganic gardening, so that's organic gardening, but only using vegan inputs. So I don't use manure, I don't use blood and bone meal. I use other sources of plant-based, like compost and leaf mulch and grass clippings and things like that. So Peas in Love Community Garden that's in Manchester, Connecticut. And if you'd like to check us out, we have a Facebook page there. And I'll be planting some tomatoes and squash and cucumber and peppers this week. Just getting those warm weather vegetables in the ground soon. And then the plant-based milk and meat. So if you want to eliminate milk and meat, since you're, based on what I just gave you, you don't need to eat those animal products. So you can actually find plant-based milk and meats in the regular grocery stores. So many options available these days. It used to be just soy milk, but now we have all different nut milks. There's hemp milk, there's oat milk. So you can sample them, see which ones you like, and again, once you start making that shift, you won't miss drinking milk. And then the plant-based meats, again, so many on the market. There's some that are, really good if you feel like you need that meat alternative. And the cost can be an issue because, of course, plant-based meats, they're going to be processed food. They're going to cost more, but Aldi's is a great resource for low-cost plant-based foods. They have really good selection in many of the Aldi's for organic produce and less expensive than the regular grocery store. And they also have a line of vegetarian and vegan foods called Earth Grown. So they have veggie burgers, they have tofu, they have veggie cheese, cream cheese, all sorts of things. Ice cream I've seen also. And so this is kind of, the silver lining in this dark cloud of the coronavirus is that there's been a meat shortage and the price of meat is going up, but that means people are starting to look at meat alternatives more. So Beyond Meat is one of the larger companies that's found at the major grocery stores. And you can get burgers, sausage. They just came out with a breakfast sausage. They're all really close to the real thing. I actually would recommend, if you feel like you'll miss meat, I would say try Beyond Burgers, try their Beyond Sausage Italian. I do sausage and peppers, and my Italian family, I'm part Italian, part Lithuanian, and when we go for Christmas, I make sausage and peppers, and even the Italian men will say they can't believe that that's plant-based. They can't believe that that's not meat. It just tastes so much like it. And Beyond Meat has been slashing prices. They're now available at Costco, so you can get them in bulk. So becoming more affordable, more accessible. And this list just came out last week in Veganista, which is called the Meat Lover's Guide to Plant-Based Meat, which has a whole list of all the different plant-based meats available on the market. If you go to that link, you can find that resource. And even fast food restaurants. So I'm not saying it's healthy to eat at fast food restaurants, but in a pinch, it's going to be a little bit healthier than eating the meat-based foods. But you can find the Impossible Burger that's similar to the Beyond Burger. White Castle has it, and you can get the Impossible Whopper now at Burger King. And as I mentioned, in a pinch, I had one of those days a few weeks ago where I went out my once a week time out and about doing things, and I just drove past Burger King and I thought I'm gonna get a Whopper, an Impossible Whopper, and just ask for it without the special sauce, and it's vegan. And other fast food restaurants have vegan options. They may have healthier things as well. So salads, soups, smoothies, wraps, things like that you can find at these other restaurants. And there's even vegan fast food, so healthy versions of the fast food, like instead of the um, hamburgers and hot dogs, you can get plant-based burgers. You can get sweet potato fries. In Rhode Island, in Providence, last year, the restaurant, it's a, how can I call it? It's like a 5 restaurant-in-1 experience. It's called Plant City. There's 5 different vegan restaurants. There's an Italian restaurant, a Mexican restaurant, there's a deli, there's a bakery, and one more. I think it's a little grocery store, all in one location. So you can just go wild there with eating plant-based food. So I'd say, and they are just recently, just last week, they opened for takeout and patio service so that they you can eat out there. Excuse me. Just needed to get a little, that's my tea. So more and more people are experiencing and trying to eat healthy and switching to these plant-based alternatives instead of the animal-based products. And you can even find them at places like 7-Eleven. You can get cold pressed juices. You can get, instead of getting your, what was it, the Big Gulp, now you can get juice at 7-Eleven. So if you're ever out and about and you're not sure where you can find plant-based food, there's an app called Vegan Express where you can just look up fast food restaurants and national chains. And then there's also happycow.net, which I would highly recommend whenever, if you're able to travel eventually, just getting out and about in your local community, you can type in wherever you are, whatever location you're in, and see what restaurants and health food stores exist in that area that have vegan options. It's pretty amazing all over the world. So whenever I travel, it's been a while, and maybe even longer till I get back on the road to travel, but I always look up Happy Cow to see where I can eat. And sometimes I even plan trips around restaurants that I find on Happy Cow. But right here in Connecticut, we're so fortunate to have many vegan restaurants and vegetarian restaurants or vegan friendly restaurants. This is a list of mostly in the Hartford area, as well as a few on the shore, but I just, these are the ones that I recommend. I love going to. So Divine Treasures in Manchester. If you ever have a craving for chocolate, soft serve ice cream, or cheese, that's the place to go. They just announced that they have a new soft serve machine. So I think they said they have 4 flavors every day. They have vanilla and chocolate always, and I think they had Bailey's and peanut butter recently, and just their sundaes are amazing. They are open for curbside delivery, as well as they're letting one person in at a time right now. So I think if you call ahead, you can let them know that you're coming. But their chocolates are amazing too. And you can tell Diane is the owner. Tell her that I sent you, and she'll be happy to know that you're trying Divine Treasures for the first time because you saw this presentation. In Hartford, there's Fire and Spice, a Caribbean restaurant. West Hartford, Flora is not entirely vegan, but it's the majority of the menu is vegan. And then down the shoreline in Branford, G Zen and G Monkey Mobile, which is the food truck. In Middletown, Ion, which stands for It's Only Natural. And then New Haven, right next to Gateway Community College. So that's my ritual when I go back there. I teach, and then at the end of my day teaching, I grab some Caribbean food to go. Their jerk tofu is amazing. And then Shayna Bee's by the Sea, it's all gluten-free and vegan and really delicious baked goods. Three Girls Vegan Creamy has delicious vegan cheese, and the Italian favorites. They're run by a woman who's Italian, so ravioli, cavatelli, cannoli, all these foods that are lasagna. Their lasagna is amazing. And then 21 Oak right in Manchester. If you ever go there, check out Karen's Donuts. Again, not healthy, but some of the best vegan donuts I've had. Her apple fritters are amazing. So that's just to kind of give you a short list of things to try. So my premise as a wellness educator, as a vegan chef, is the ability to eat healthy, nutritious food should be a fundamental human right. We should all be able to eat this way. We should all be able to be healthy based on the food we eat. And it shouldn't harm anyone in the process. It shouldn't harm anyone that consumes the food. We should be able to get food that's, we can trust to make us healthy. It shouldn't harm animals because we don't need to eat them. It shouldn't harm the people who work in those industries, who shouldn't have to risk their lives from, the coronavirus of working in meat processing plants. And it shouldn't harm the environment. The animal agriculture industry is one of the most destructive industries on the planet environmentally. And we need to really think about moving in a direction that's healthier for all people, animals, and the planet. And there have been many articles that have come out recently. This one is titled, "We Have to Wake Up. Factory Farms Are Breeding Grounds for Pandemics." Many of these articles point to the connection between animal agriculture and food-based illnesses, food-borne illnesses like E. coli, which comes from the animal manure, and diseases like SARS and MERS, which resulted from the confinement of animals. There are concerns about the antibiotic use on factory farms and antibiotic-resistant superbugs, and this is all kind of coming into effect now with the COVID-19, which originated in a market in China, again, from confined animals that were used for food. So these are unnatural situations, and disease ends up spreading as a result. So we really need to think about alternatives to that. So then you might be wondering, how do we stay healthy with this COVID-19 in our midst? And in addition to, isolating, to staying at home, wearing a mask, wearing gloves, things like that, there are additional precautions you can take. This was posted by Dr. Milton Mills, who is a doctor with the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. He came up with this list because people have been asking, well, what supplements can you take that boost your immune system that will help you fight off any of these toxins? And again, this is not a remedy for COVID-19. This is not a cure for COVID-19, but these supplements have been shown to support your body, to boost your immune system, to build your natural defenses. So this is a list if you want to do a screenshot or whatever of the list. You can do that. And I recommend taking a multivitamin every day anyway. And I also recommend a probiotic, which helps with digestion. And as I mentioned, the vitamin B12 supplement in addition to your multivitamin. Those will help kind of as insurance to help you stay healthy. And then just a little bit more about herbs. There's so many positive effects from plants. So I mentioned that whole other list with, calcium, iron, protein, etc. But plants also have other qualities. And I did a whole webinar last week on herbs for your immune system and to create a tea that's antiviral. Um, so this is the short version of it. I'll just have a couple of slides on this, just so you can see some, again, just a short list of some of the benefits. So there are herbs that have antiviral properties. So garlic and ginger are some of the most common. They're antimicrobial because they also have antibiotic effects. So they help the body fight infection, essentially. But all of these are really good. Turmeric, lemon balm, oregano. So if you have oil of oregano in capsule form, it's a really concentrated dose. That's often given if you have candida infection in your body or overgrowth of bad bacteria in your gut. And then elderberry is often used at the start of the cold and flu season in the winter to take some as a syrup every day, just to boost your immune system to prevent any of those flus. And then we have anti-inflammatory herbs. So these are the ones that reduce inflammation overall in your body. And some of the big ones are ginger and turmeric, as I mentioned, the curries. So if you have Thai, Jamaican, Indian curries, they're loaded with ginger and turmeric. For turmeric to help absorb it even more, you want to put some fresh black pepper in there as well. And then another anti-inflammatory herb, I have this one growing in my garden and I depend on it. So if you ever feel like you're getting a headache or if you feel a fever coming on, its name kind of implies what it's all about, feverfew. It helps reduce the inflammation in your head. So we, make a headache go away. It will reduce a fever or minimize the length of time that you have a fever. And then there's adaptogenic herbs. So what that means is they're the kind of herbs that can help you in two ways. So if you are overly energized, hyper, you can't calm down, the herb will help your body adapt and it's calming. But if you find that you're tired, sluggish, fatigued all the time, the same herb will actually help you get more energy. And so there's three common ones that are used, and they're all from the Ayurvedic school. Holy basil, ashwagandha, and astragalus. Holy basil is also known as tulsi, and that to me, that's my go-to for balancing. Every morning I just kind of, when I wake up, I don't drink any coffee, so I'm usually relatively energized at the beginning of the day. But if I feel a little unbalanced or not quite right, something either too stressed or if I'm sluggish, then I'll take holy basil and that kind of balances me and I feel like I can get through the day. And this is my immune boosting antimicrobial tea that I talked about in my webinar last week. But essentially, I drank this, different versions of it throughout the winter, depending on what was available. But white pine needles, that was the base. So believe it or not, white pine, you can use the needles. You have to be 100% sure of what you're using, but they're high in vitamin C and antioxidants. So really great for cleansing out those toxins and preventing those infections. So white pine needles, stinging nettles, and green tea, those three are all the really high antioxidant herbs. And then feverfew was for reducing inflammation. Thyme is if you have a sore throat or scratchy throat, or you can feel tightness in your throat, it really helps to minimize that. Violet and plantain are both mucilaginous herbs, which will coat the throat, so they will soothe you if you feel like you're getting a sore throat. And then we have all those antimicrobials, so oregano, peppermint, bee balm, lemon balm, and sage. They're all in the mint family, and they also help with digestion as well. So that combined, believe it or not, makes a really delicious tea. I'll add a little bit of stevia to it for some sweetness, and that's kind of what I have right now too, that I drink almost every day. So that's the little herb lesson. And then for more information, so obviously there's so much I can talk about, but we just have about an hour or so together. And if you want additional information, and if you have any specific questions about some of the nutrition or, health related issues, I highly recommend the website nutritionfacts.org by Dr. Michael Greger. He's the author of the book How Not to Die, which I had on the previous couple slides ago. And that's his book where he lists the top 15 causes of death and the evidence-based research that shows how a plant-based diet can prevent or reverse those conditions. So he has all the statistics and these handy little easy to digest videos on that website. And then the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, pcrm.org, also for anything medical related, and they have a great 21-day jumpstart program for anyone that might want to make the vegan switch. And A Well-Fed World is about the food justice issues, same with Food Empowerment Project, so that shows the connection between animal agriculture and global poverty and how we can reduce all that by switching to a plant-based diet. And there's so many great references, so many great books these days and cookbooks, including this one by vegan chef Mary Lawrence. It's called Eat Vegan with Me. But if you're interested in purchasing it, it's available on Amazon. Or I give a special bonus that if you're interested in starting a garden, I will personally autograph a copy and send you free seeds if you purchase the book from me. So you can email me after if you're interested in doing that, and I'm happy to send free seeds that I've saved from my garden, like carrot, dill, mustard, squash, pepper, all those things. It's a variety of seeds that you might get. So contact me if you're interested. And then documentaries. So there's so many now that are available. Most of these you can find on Netflix, or you can find them online. One of the most recent ones is The Game Changers, which I highly recommend. Really well done documentary. It focuses on athletes making the shift to a plant-based diet, but really it can apply to anyone. And the journey that this particular person goes on is very informative. Some other ones, Eating You Alive, Forks Over Knives, that was one of the first plant-based documentaries that came out. And then What the Health, which kind of shows how the medical industry and the pharmaceutical industry kind of work together to promote disease and the pharmaceutical solution as opposed to promoting health. So that's fascinating. Cowspiracy is about the animal agriculture impact on the environment. And then Ghost in Our Machine and Peaceable Kingdom look at the animals. So they're all, a good variety to start with. And these are some of the foods that you can create. Really, I always talk about color, taste, and texture when I do my classes, when I teach people how to eat healthier and how to prepare simple recipes. So you want to have food that's colorful, that is appealing to the eye, that makes you want to dig in. Having a wide variety of the taste, so not just salty and sweet, but bitter and sour and spicy, and even adding that fifth flavor, umami, makes your food feel balanced and satisfying. And again, when I teach classes, I talk about how you can create all that flavor profile in your food. And then texture, having a wide variety of textures, so crunchy and smooth and creamy in one meal will make your mouth kind of, go through that experience of, learning something new as you're eating. So, you'll start with a crunch and then it gets soft or chewy or crispy. It's just really fun having all those different textures. So when we introduce people to tasty, culturally appropriate plant-based food, we can create eating habits where health and compassion are the new normal. And that's my goal as a wellness educator. I want this to be the way people see as normal from now and into the future. And I want to tell you about a couple of programs before, I should say, we'll have time for Q&A, and then I'll check the chat box, see if you have any questions. So if you've posted anything, I didn't have the chat box open at the moment, but if you have any questions and you'd like to put them in the chat box, I can address them shortly. But for more information, McDougall, who, as I mentioned, John McDougall, has a medical center in California, and on his website, he has the free McDougall program. So you can go to his medical center and you can go on a retreat and spend hundreds and thousands of dollars, or you can do this free program right in the comfort of your own home. So it's great that it's available. You can go to the website drmcdougall.com and get this information. It's at your own pace that you can learn more detailed. But if you'd like to get more direct schooling, I have Vegan Homeschool. I did this a couple of years ago, online class, and it was great. It's a 4-week class. It starts June 3rd, and I'll show you the syllabus for that in a minute. But essentially, we go into detail with some of these different foods. I'll give examples of breakfast, lunch, dinner, desserts, and snacks, and really learning about meal planning and shopping for foods and how to stock your vegan pantry and what equipment you need to get your plant-based kitchen going. And I'll even demonstrate an Instant Pot, which is like my latest favorite kind of tool for the kitchen. And these are some of the things that I will be teaching. And these are recipes from my cookbook. It's pecan crusted tempeh on the left with mashed sweet potato, sauteed greens, and 2 sauces. It's a maple chipotle cashew crema and parsley pesto. So the colors there, the textures, the food is just really inviting and satisfying. And then the top right, I'll talk about using fresh produce to make salads over the summer. It's just so great, as I said, using fresh from the garden produce, and edible flowers like the nasturtium as a garnish. And then the bottom right, some healthy desserts. So that is a beautiful, it's called a Dirty Blondie tart, made with chocolate chips, but also has the secret ingredient of cannellini beans, oatmeal, and applesauce, which are all good for heart health. And it's amazing that you don't even realize you're eating that healthy food. It just tastes decadent and delicious. So I always recommend to experiment with vegan food, to try new recipes, to try new foods and flavors. And, if you're able to get out and about to go to a restaurant, one of those ones that I mentioned in Connecticut, there's some great places to try food. So thank you for making compassion the main course. And now I'll open up for some questions. If you'd like to follow me on social media, many of you I know already do. You're on my email list, but if you'd like to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, I'm at Well on Wheels. And as I mentioned before, if you'd like to donate, PayPal or Venmo, $5 or $10, whatever you're comfortable with, I'd be happy to make a donation to the American Vegan Society for their 60th anniversary. Let me just close that for now and check our chat box and see. I'm glad to see there are some comments here. Let me scrolling back. So sorry, I didn't see these as I was going along. I see some of you were responding to some of my, what I had been saying, so. Okay, So good. I'm glad that you thought the information was informative. Thank you.
Mary, may I ask you a question while you're looking?
Sure, yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, my name's Dave, by the way. Love the presentation. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Question for you. I've read in my travels that if men have too much soy or processed soy, that could be an issue. Can you speak to that at all?
So I'm not going to give medical advice. Everybody is different. And there is research that claims that, but I would also say to check the source of the research. So to specifically answer your question, I'm going to refer you to that nutritionfacts.org website. Dr. Michael Greger gets into that question extensively. It's a very common one, but overall the response to it is there's not a concern, that you don't need to be concerned about it. But I caution to just have a wide variety of foods. So you don't want to just be eating processed foods. You don't want to just be eating soy-based burgers and hot dogs and things like that. Not because of the concern about, too much estrogen or anything like that, that sometimes people wonder about, but just that you want to have a wide variety of foods in your diet. So that's the short answer.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to let everybody know that as I've started my journey, I've been looking at a lot of meat substitutes because I just can't make the jump right away.
Yeah.
But you have to be careful because a lot of like the fake, like little meatballs, for example, have a higher fat and calorie content than regular ones. So you really have to look at the label and make sure that even though it's plant-based, it's not like, it's still not bad for you. So that's just my personal experience I wanted to share with everybody.
Yeah, so, right. So if you're concerned about health, definitely you want to minimize the processed foods, but you could still have them and have a lot of the fresh fruits and vegetables to kind of balance that, so that again, you're not just having processed foods. But I would say if there's any concern about soy, the Beyond Meat products are soy free. They're not low in fat, but they, if you don't want to eat soy, and they're also wheat free, gluten free as well. All right, so it's funny, I'm trying to skim through the chat, but every time somebody makes a comment, it goes right back to the bottom. So looking at just the comment, okay, where can those products be found? Yes, Stop and Shop, many of them are now available at the major grocery stores. If you can find them. So sometimes they're empty or they're in the frozen food section, but you have to kind of look around where they might be. Stop and Shop, good. All right, hold on. I want to mute everyone because I am hearing a lot of noise. All right, go back to my, all right, I guess I'll just stay here. I'm going to change my view so I can see all of you. All right. Oops, now I lost my chat box. Hold on. All right, going back to the chat box now. Okay. If somebody was asking about my English class, I teach English 099 and English 101. Yes, more important to look at the ingredients. And I'm looking still, see that many of you answered each other's questions. Thank you for that. Yes, thank you. I'm glad. You're welcome for the presentation, Alan. Thank you for being here. I haven't heard from you for a while. And yes, so low sodium veggie stock. So if you're concerned about sodium, sometimes people also may be concerned about oil. That's in a plant-based diet, whole foods. Some people stay away from oil entirely. So you can saute veggies using vegetable stock or water. You can do it in a, as I said, an instant pot where you're not using any oil. So those are alternatives for low oil. Question of, do I teach any dietary technician classes at Gateway? No, I don't. I just teach English at Gateway. And I focus on nutrition. So I'm not a registered dietitian. I just want to make sure that's clear too. A question, is there any way we can access last week's webinar on the herbs? Unfortunately, that one I forgot to record. So I don't have that one. I may end up doing that one again, just because I had a lot of people that were interested, same thing, and they said, oh, when are you going to do it again? And I hadn't planned to, but I may schedule it again. I do want to share my screen just so I can show you what's coming up. So hold on. Share. Talk about, so on my calendar, which maybe you registered this way, you probably all came to this. This was tonight's class registered, but this is the vegan homeschool that I mentioned. It's a 4-week class that starts next Wednesday. Each class is about an hour and a half long, similar to tonight, which has a webinar, and then there's handouts that are associated with it, as well as video links for additional information. And then I want to show you the outline for that. So first week, I get into more of this plant-based nutrition. And I talk about setting health goals. So if you're not yet vegan, or if you're moving in the vegan direction, or if you have a specific goal about getting off medication or losing weight, things like that, I talk about setting those health goals. And then I give examples of simple recipes for breakfast. And then week 2, we go through stocking your vegan pantry. So the refrigerator and pantry staples, food substitutions, and basic culinary prep. So it's like cooking from the pantry or cooking from the cupboard, examples like that. And then I show you some recipes for lunch. And then week 3, some meal planning tips. So essential kitchen tools that make cooking quick and easy, sample menus, and I'll demonstrate how to use an Instant Pot with some recipes for dinner. And then the 4th week, quick and easy recipe ideas. So I talk about those concepts that I mentioned briefly with balancing color, taste, and texture, but I go into detail for this class and where to purchase the ingredients. And I'll have some examples of healthy desserts and snacks. So if you're interested in learning more, and that's a bargain, it's $97 for that. But for tonight, as I mentioned, if you'd like to donate, if you click on, I'll post this in the chat box to donate for tonight's class. Like I said, $5 or $10, whatever you're comfortable with. You don't have to do anything, but if you're able to, that would be wonderful. So that's now in the chat box. So now I'm looking to see if there's any other questions. Okay. Okay, so support for first-time gardeners. I also will be doing gardening classes this summer. I do free webinars for that. So normally last year I did them in person. I did a compost making workshop. I did planting for pollinators and companion planting, and creating your medicinal and culinary herb garden. So those are some topics I'll be putting together into webinars over the summer. So, make sure that you follow my social media for information on that. And those will be free or by donation as well. I'm seeing lots of questions and it's like tough. I just want to try to answer some of these. Okay. So is there a way to, okay. So where do you get your herbs? I guess here's another bonus. If you live in the area, I have lots of mint. I'm happy to share some herbs from my garden. So send me an email if you'd like some mint. I also have a lot of feverfew in my garden. I'm happy to share. And sometimes that's the best way, is sharing with people that you know. But other than that, Nature Works is an organic nursery in North Branford that I go to, which is good for fresh herbs and vegetables and, you know, just beautiful plants. Sorry, I'm still scrolling. And yes, the free seed comment. I'm sorry if I'm not able to answer everybody's question, because like I said, as you post something, it gets re-scrolling. Somebody joining us from Atlanta. Well, that's awesome that you joined us, but yes, obviously makes it difficult to give you some plants. But I'm happy to mail some seeds if you'd like any seeds. I have dill seeds. I can, you know, dill, carrot, mustard, a bunch of other things too. I see a comment that you'd love, somebody, Raquel would love more information about holistic and natural remedies. So thank you for that idea. I'm happy to, you know, consider that for future webinars. Definitely, I'm interested in doing that. Right. Yes, and I don't have any other classes other than the vegan homeschool listed right now because everything else is in the works. I'm putting those together. Once I have them, they will be posted on my website. And I'll just say, if you didn't get your question answered, since it's about 7:30 and I don't want to keep anyone too much longer, if you didn't get your question answered and you have, you know, something else that you'd like to ask me, feel free to send me an email. I'm at, I'll type it into the chat box, mary@wellonwheels.com. You can reach me directly that way, or you can contact me through my website. So thank you all so much. I am so glad that you're here with me, and I do hope that this information was helpful to you and will move you along in the vegan journey. And again, feel free to contact me if you ever have any questions, and I will look forward to seeing you again in the future. So thank you so much. I will have, and also post the recording if you want to see this again. So I'll say bye for now, and I hope to see you again in the future.